Ma'am?
Yes, Geetha, we can start.
Yes. Good evening, distinguished guests, respected faculty members, and dear participant. It is indeed a great pleasure to welcome you all to today's session of the fortnightly symposia organized by Intantum Research Club in collaboration with the PG and Research Department of English, Queen Mary's College. This evening, we together to reflect, share, and engage in meaningful discussion on the thought-provoking theme Island Region and Adivasi. We trust that today's deliberations will inspire fresh insights and open now perspectives on the subject. Now, we have keynote speaker Professor K.A.Geetha, professor in Birla's Institute of Technology and Science, Goa campus. Her doctoral research focused on the production, institutionalization, and reception of Tamil Dalit literature. Her research interests are Dalit writing, post-colonial literature, cultural studies, and women's studies. Geetha Madam is here to speak on the topic analysis of Sri Lankan Tamil and Dalit literature. Good evening, ma'am.
Yeah, good evening to all. And then thanks a lot, Ms. Geetha, for your introduction. And
Yes, ma'am.
I take this opportunity to thank Professor Preeti Srinivasan and also Professor Joshua Nyanaselvan, who wrote to me a couple of months ago about this event and then asked me about my availability. I'm also thankful to all the members of this research club of the Department of English in tandem from the Queen Mary's College, college that I have cherished memories of because basically I'm from Chennai, though of course I was born and brought up there. As I had my education there, and then I moved to Goa after my PhD. The topic that we are going to discuss today, which I'll of course it's a very brief talk as such, but then though of course there is so much more, I'm just going to limit it to some 20 or 25 minutes and then give you an idea of what Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature is all about. So when we are, with the very thought of Sri Lanka, what does it come to us? I mean, the fact that there was an ethnic strife over there, and the kind of conflict that actually shook. It went on for decades, and then the kind of conflicts between the Sinhalese and the Tamils. This is what dominates the Sri Lankan socio-political domain. But then there were other aspects that was very much prevalent within the Tamil community, of which we are going to focus on. The most important aspect being the caste system, which was prevalent within the community. Now, paradoxically, the caste system as it is prevalent here in India, with the four divisions, the fourfold Varna divisions, the Brahmin, Kshatriyas, Vaishyas, and then the Shudras and the Avarnas. Now, here in this system that is prevalent within the Hindu society in India, the dominant caste happens to be the Brahmins, and then who form the apex of the caste system. On the other end, you have the Avarnas, and over a period of time, they were referred to as depressed classes by the British government, and then they identified themselves as Dalits much later. But very interestingly, if you see the nomenclatures that were used within within Tamil Nadu, okay, starting from the late 19th century, the nomenclature Dalit or the reference, the term Dalit was something that became that gained currency in Tamil Nadu only in the 1990s after Ambedkar centenary celebrations. Until then, at least in the early decades of the 20th century, this group of people were referred to as Tarta Pattor or Odika Pattor, those who are considered to be low and then those who are set aside from the society. Now, it so happened that there was a very distinct Dalit consciousness which was prevalent much before Ambedkar's time in Tamil Nadu. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that. There was a movement which was pioneered by a scholar who belonged to the Adi Dravidar community, who belonged to the the Dalit community as they are referred to now. His name was Ayotidas Pandita. he pioneered a liberation movement resisting the caste discrimination that was prevalent within the society, and he insisted that the Dalits should identify at that point of time identify themselves as Panjamars, meaning to be see the fifth caste. Now, interestingly, when we look at the Tamil society that was, that lived in Sri Lanka, though of course away from us. So there are two kinds of Tamils who lived in Sri Lanka, Tamil people, the indigenous Tamil people, Sri Lankan Tamils who were there. And then the people who went from Tamil Nadu to, during the colonial period to work in the tea plantations over there. So they can be referred to as the Indian Tamils. Now, within both these communities, though of course collectively they are referred to as Tamils, the caste system was very much prevalent, and if the Brahmins happen to be the apex of the caste system, which was prevalent within the Indian Hindus, in Sri Lanka, the most prominent or the most dominant caste were the Saiva Velalars. Okay, they were the dominant caste. The space that the Brahmins occupied over here in Tamil Nadu or within the Hindu society in India was occupied by the Saiva Vellalas in Sri Lanka. And if on the bottom, of course, you had the Panjamars. Now, whether Adivasis Pandidar was influenced by or knew that such a nomenclature or such a terminology was prevalent in Sri Lanka, because we had a lot of trade, a lot of mutual trade was happening between Tamil Nadu and Sri Lanka at that point of time, even before the colonial period and after the colonial period. And Adivasis Pandidar might have borrowed this term Panjamars from there. Okay? But leaving that aside, we need to look at how caste norms and caste hierarchy and then caste conventions was very much embedded within the socio-political or socio-cultural domain of the Tamils living in Sri Lanka. And then our discussion is going to be focusing on this particular aspect. Now, when we think of Sri Lanka, as I started off at the beginning, we all think of the ethnic strife or the ethnic conflict that happened between the Sinhalese and Tamils. And from the 1950s onwards, you have this ethnic nationalism, which is bringing in all the Tamils together. Okay? And when the Tamils are coming together, be it the indigenous Tamils or the Indian Tamils, they both are coming together. Caste was something that was not discussed openly. Okay, that is one point. The other thing is, in Sri Lanka, caste is not considered as a category, and it is not mentioned in any of the legal documents, any of the official documents, like how it is sort of, it has a very, very pivotal role to play in our birth certificate or in different forms that we'll have to fill in, which is of course coming from the state. Caste is a category which is considered over here, which has its benefits and also its ill effects, because caste should not be discussed. But then if the person happens to if the person happens to belong to an underprivileged caste, then of course there are some affirmative action which is taken by the state. So caste identities are documented in our system, in the Indian system. Unlike the Indian system, in Sri Lanka, caste is not a constitutional category which is going to be documented in any of these official documents. But paradoxically, caste norms were followed. Untouchability was followed. Endogamy, most importantly, was followed. And this bonded laborers that we find, if you look at how Dalits were living in the 19th and the early 20th century until the liberation movement, when they just come together and they fight against caste discrimination. Until then, most of them were working for some farmlands and they were tied to that particular land. So this kind of a bonded subservience that was there amongst the Dalits over here. Similar kind of a scenario you will find in Sri Lanka also. This was supposed to be even now it is there. That is what we are going to look at. Okay, so it was very much there until the 1958. Until this conflict started. It all started off with the linguistic conflict between the Sinhalese and Tamils, and then of course it shaped it just went into a different direction altogether, when it ended up in a sequence of literal wars physical wars being fought between the two groups. Now, in this scenario, caste is not foregrounded at all because there was a necessity to bring in this kind of an ethno-nationalistic feeling amongst the Tamils, but discreetly, caste continues to dominate. And where do we find it? Where do we find this caste discrimination or the caste hierarchy or the caste norms that are being followed within the society? For that, we need to turn to the literary works written by Tamils. It is actually in Tamil. It's not translated into English. And in fact, right from the 1920s, I'm just going to give you some data. I'm just going to read. Right from the 1920s, there were what is it? Distinct voices of protest by the Panjamars. They were referred to as Panjamars. Okay, and then there were distinct voices of protest against this kind of caste discrimination that they were undergoing. Okay, especially in the hands of the Saiva Velladars. So you have the Yarpanam Youth Congress Committee meeting coming together as early as 1924, and they passed a resolution to abolish untouchability. They were also very highly influenced by Gandhiji, okay, and his movement to abolish untouchability, the Indian National Congress. Then in 1927, the Odukkapadum Tamil Uriyar Sangam, that meaning the oppressed Tamil employees union, was formed. So in 1930s and 40s, even before this ethnic conflict had begun, there was a very strong, distinct movement. A protest, a resistance movement had already begun. Okay, in Sri Lanka, which of course did not come out in the open, did not translate into political activism, because it was somewhere, it was sapped. All these the energy that was there was completely sapped because of the ethnic conflict or the ethnic strife that happened between the Sinhalese and Tamils. So in the 1930s and 1940s, a Panjamar liberation movement, like how you had the Dalit liberation movement over here, okay, much before the Dalit liberation movement, as I pointed out, in the early decades of the 20th century, because when we think of the Dalit liberation movement, the general reference point is that it was pioneered by Ambedkar. But very interestingly, if you just look at the annals of our Tamil history, you will find that much before Ambedkar, because Ambedkar began in the 1930s and 1940s, but much before Ambedkar, as a contemporary of Jyotiba Phule in Maharashtra, we have Ayotidas Pandita. So in fact, it predates the Dalit revolutionary consciousness in Tamil Nadu. In fact, predates Ambedkar's liberation movement, which started off in the 1930s and 40s. So you find that a similar kind of a movement was found, and it was going on in Sri Lanka also. So in the 1930s and 40s, you have a Panjamar liberation movement, which was gaining ground in the Tamil regions in Sri Lanka. It was at this time that literature became a very, very effective tool to protest against caste discrimination. So the first literary work to highlight caste discrimination was the novel Neelagandan Alladu Oru Sadi Vellalan by Idaikadar, which was published in 1925. So can we call this as an initial or the first voices of Tamil Dalit literature, is a question that we need to answer now. Because when we talk of, or when we discuss Tamil Dalit literature, which I'm sure has become part of the literary studies curriculum, we start off from the 1990s. We discuss Bama, then we discuss Shivakami, and so on and so forth, Imayam, and all of them. They all started writing in the 1990s. Whatever they are writing is categorized as is classified and categorized as Dalit literature. But then we have distinct voices, which was very much prevalent even before them, and then that too. Of course, here in Tamil Nadu, people like Rettamale Srinivasan and Ayotidas Pandita had initiated that kind of a liberation movement in the early decades of the 20th century. Simultaneously, you find that the initial literature on the discrimination suffered, the caste discrimination or caste oppression suffered by the Panchamars was written in Sri Lanka. So as early as 1925, you have this novel published, and in the following years, novels focusing on the social evils of casteism were increasingly written by novelists like Muttathambi Pillai, S. Nallayya, Muttathambi Chellappa, and Selvanayakam. So they were all influenced by Gandhian ideals, because what Gandhi was professing over here, was advocating over here to abolish untouchability, had in fact reached Sri Lanka also. So the Panjamar literary movement, which launched a vehement protest against the social inequality embedded in the caste system, was very strongly influenced by Gandhiji, but also influenced by the communist movement. So the 1950s was a period when Marxism was ruling, was actually reigning supreme, not only in Sri Lanka, but also in India. We have the progressive movement that started off. And you have a lot of writers who were influenced by Marxism, and then you have the progressive literature. So you also have some Panjamar writers, Tamil writers from Sri Lanka who were also part of this movement. And pioneering among such writers, we have K. Daniel. I don't know whether you have heard about K. Daniel. He is one of those very important seminal writers as far as Tamil Dalit literature, Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature is concerned. And he has written a lot of novels and then short stories. We don't have the time to discuss all, but I'm just mentioning all this so that you can, take it further. If you're interested, you can go and read. And then there are a lot of articles. If you can read in Tamil, well and good, you can go and read the original. That is something that we can definitely do. So all these writers believe that literature played a pivotal role in the liberation movement, and its main function is to bring about social and political change. So Daniel, a Panjamar activist and literator, writes, I just quote Daniel, from the beginning of mankind till today, human existence is an endless struggle. A literature which is indifferent to the struggle is not literature. Until then, writers like me will continue to wage this war through our literature. So literature played a very, very pivotal role in disseminating, in circulating this kind of a revolutionary consciousness and this resistance and awareness. Because even amongst the Panjamars, you need to instill this kind of a revolutionary consciousness. You should make them aware of the subordinate or the subservient position, the oppression they were undergoing. So literature played a very, very pivotal role. So I can't go into all the details due to the constraints of time. It is already 17 minutes past. And then I'm just going to go into the most important aspects of what we will be discussing. So apart from K. Daniel, we also have Dominic Jiva, then we have Tennian, then we have S.K. Raghunath, and many more, in fact. So I've actually published a couple of articles research articles on Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature. The first article was much earlier, I think in 2014 or 15, when I published in a journal called Ariel, where I have written about the necessity for translation, how it's very important to translate this very important seminal corpus of work which is written by Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit writers. And then this is still in many of them are still in Tamil. So there is a necessity for these works to be translated to English so that it will reach a wider audience. The second article that I wrote on Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature has got to do with an analysis of three novels. Okay. And then, just to highlight how caste discrimination is something that is very much prevalent. Before the ethnic wars, okay, and then post-ethnic wars in the 21st century, and also in the diaspora. So I just took three different literary works, three different novels. One is two are short stories though. One is a novel by Daniel, and then I have analyzed. So K. Daniel's novel, Kanni. I'm sorry, Kanal. Daniel's novel Kanal is actually the context is when this thing is slowly brewing up. It's in the 1950s. We have still not entered the phase when the Sinhalese and the Tamil conflict is it just reaches the peak much later. But then even before that, the novel is contextualized in that period, in the ethnic conflict era, we can say, if we can use that word. So it is about the Panjamar community who are just coming together, and there is a Mariamma temple over there, and then they all collect. They all contribute to this. To some festival, the temple festival, and despite the contribution, because it's their hard-earned savings, and then they're all daily wage laborers, and then they have set aside a substantial amount of their daily wage towards this festival. In the end, they find that they are denied entry into the temple. They can worship the deity only from a distance, from outside the temple. So untouchability was practiced. So there is a Christian missionary which is set up. Which slowly comes into the region, and then they convert to Christianity. And they are sort of happy and then contented that now is a new religion, and in this religion probably we are going to be considered as equals. But subtly and then very discreetly they just come to know that the converts from the pariah community are not treated equally with the Velala Christians, So, I mean, it's a very, what I say, poignant novel where, of course, all these historical events are also mentioned. I'm just putting it in a nutshell for you. But then, if you're interested, you can go and read it. It's not translated into English, but if you can read Tamil, you can just go and read Daniel. In fact, there's a entire collection of K. Daniel's works. It's available. Okay, so it's very much there. So you can it should be available in New Century Book House or some of the book houses where they sell all these contemporary Tamil writings. If you go and check, probably this will be available. That is where I got it. Okay, so how caste discrimination was prevalent in the 1950s. Now we shift to the 1990s. I mean, this is the post-ethnic conflict, and then this is a short story, and then written by Devadasan. By the name, the title of the short story is Kanni. And then this story is about a woman called Chudamani. Okay, very interestingly, she is one of those persons who has joined the LTT cadre, and then now all that has fizzled out. Now the LTT appears to have been wiped off, and then it is the Sinhalese who are governing, and then slowly she is just coming back to her native village. Okay, and then a lot of things have changed, but then she realizes that okay, there's an old ancestral home and nobody is living there. But then she says, okay, I'll have to settle. This is my native town, and nobody can send me out of this place. And then she has a sense of belonging, so she comes back. And then in the exterior, she was such a strong woman physically and also emotionally. But now all that is shattered. She's weak. But then she's trying to find some solace in coming back to her hometown, and she's setting right that dilapidated ancient house that once belonged to her family. But then she realizes that certain things have changed, but the caste norms have not changed. For instance, the drinking water, the water bodies are not located in the colony where they stay. That is the Panjamars stay. Still, they'll have to go to the it's referred to as the Ur and the Cheri. They have to go to the Ur. They have to go to the Uru. That is the central place where all the Saiva Vellalars are going to stay. Not going to say, I'm sorry. Stay. And then she had stayed in the past and are continuing to stay. So this sort of shows the kind of spatial divide, the spatial segregation that was there in the past in that village and is still continuing to exist. So she's going in search of water, and then she goes to this place which is actually a place where all the Savarna people or the caste Hindus live. And then she locates one particular house which happens to be her friend's house in the past, and now the friend is no more. Her daughter is there, and then she pitches a conversation to the daughter. With the daughter, she's standing outside, and then she's talking, and then she's saying, "How are you?" And then this has happened. Basic inquiries of how things were and how things have changed. And then towards the end, this is the daughter that she has seen right from her. Right from when she was a baby. Okay, because it's a friend's daughter. And then towards the end, she says, "Okay, please, I need some water. Can I just take from your well?" And then she says, "Okay, you do one thing. You just keep the pot there, and I'll pour the water." So, which means, so the short story ends there, which sort of reiterates that even in the even after the Elam wars, when things seem to be when actually it seems like that the normal routine had come back, but caste discrimination is so embedded and ingrained in the society, in the minds of the people, in the psyche of the people. When I say people, I'm talking of the Tamils and the Tamil community, that it is very difficult for them to come out of it. And something that was followed at least 30 or 40 years ago is still being continued. Okay. The third literary work that I have discussed in this article is actually, it's from a diaspora. The context is in Germany. So there are some Sri Lankan Tamils who have taken refuge in Germany, and then there is, as it is, they are all in the outskirts, because there is a ghetto where all these refugees are staying, And within the colony, within the refugee colony, there are 2 or 3 men who have to, who have to share a room. And among them, there is one person his name is Chandran, and he is from a caste. He is from a Panjamar caste, which is the Panjamars. Again, it's a collective identity, but there are a lot of like Nalavar and Pallar, like how we have over here. There are also a lot of castes which are collectively put together as Panjamars. So this Chandra belongs to the Nalava community, and then the 2 others with whom he's sharing the room, they come to know of it, and then they start ill-treating him. They start accusing him of robbery, of taking away their things, and then they make him do all the menial work. And at one point of time, he just loses control and he just hits them. And then this is taken to the court, and there in the court, no, he tries to resist them, and then he's beaten up by them. Sorry, he's beaten up by the men, by the other 2 men. And then he resists. When he's beaten up, he resists, and then they are hurt because of that. And they approach the court. And in the court, in the German court, he gets some respite because there such laws are not there. Okay, such equality, at least it's legally accepted there. It is followed there. And then he gets the courage to go and seek justice, because he's happening to be in Germany. Otherwise, if it had been Sri Lanka, he cannot go, because in Sri Lanka, caste is not a constitutional category. It is not discussed anywhere, but it is discreetly followed within the Tamil society. So looking at these 3 literary works, of course, written where the context is one is in the 1950s, that is K. Daniel's work, and then we have the post-Elam War. A woman comes back to her native town, and how there is still discrimination where she does not have access to water, and even if water is given, she has to take it only from the outside, and it is poured to her. It's not. It's the water is poured into her pot. It's not even given to her. Less that their hands should touch each other. And the third example that we looked at was how even among the diaspora, this is very, very important. Even among the diaspora, Sri Lankan Tamils, how caste becomes a very, very pivotal factor for forging relationships, and how caste discrimination continues to be followed even in a place like Germany. So I just stop here. I just want to end this discussion with what Jean-Paul Sartre has discussed in his work. What is literature? There he is just theorizing that there is a kind of a political function, a social function that literatures written by marginalized communities have within the society. So literatures written, so such literary works have a dual function. So if it is going to be read by the person who belongs to the oppressed community, okay, then it is going to bring about an awareness. If such discrimination is not happening now, then they come to know of how their ancestors have gone, what their ancestors have gone through. If that situation, if that discrimination is still continuing, oppression is still continuing, then there is, it instills a sense of a revolutionary consciousness among them to fight against such caste discrimination. On the other hand, if such a literary work is read by a person who belongs to the community who has oppressed them, the community which was dominant, probably in the past, or is still dominant, we do not know. It instills it brings in a kind of a guilt in the person, that probably that person who is reading it is not engaged in showing that kind of a discrimination, but his ancestors have done it. And then there is a kind of a move towards, some kind of efforts are taken by the person, by such a reader who belongs to the privileged community or the dominant community, to work towards social change. That can also possible. So that is also possible. That so agency, can come from a person who is oppressed, but it can also come from people who are privileged but who are working for their liberation. Either way. So it is Jean-Paul Sartre who's just discussing this in his book What is Literature, where he's talking at length, where he's theorizing the kind of impact that literary works by marginalized communities, historically marginalized communities, will have, will create a kind of an impact on the society. So here we can, I would just like to conclude with just mentioning that the kind of, when I say here, I'm talking of India. Dalit literature has that kind of a political function, and it has brought about a lot of changes. There is of course this reservation, the affirmative action, reservation policy, and affirmative action has come. It's there because it is because of the. There's a political movement, political activism is there, and then simultaneously there's also a Dalit literary movement, which was in tandem with the political activism. But in Sri Lanka, you find this Panjamar liberation movement, which started in the 1920s, which was very much active in the 1950s and 60s, has somewhat died down. Even now, people are writing about this kind of a discrimination that is happening in Sri Lanka or in diaspora. But I think unless and until the Sri Lankan administration is going to consider caste as a constitutional category that will have to be looked in, I think this is not going to be taken up for any kind of affirmative action at all. In fact, there are people who have worked on it. Sociological accounts have been there. So I just quote here Da Silva, Sivaprakasam and Tanges, who have done a study on caste in Sri Lanka. And this is what they have to say, that in contemporary Sri Lanka, caste is a taboo subject. You cannot discuss caste there. Okay? And it's not there in the public domain. But they point out from their study, and it was a quantitative and a qualitative study, a sociological study, they emphasize, and based on their findings, what they point out is that the state is not casteless, but it is caste blind. Sri Lankan state is not casteless, but caste blind. And there are no social policies to address caste oppression. So any discussion of caste is discouraged, treating it as an outdated concept and a threat to social cohesion. So there's a kind of a kind of a divide, and then a kind of a paradox. I mean, more than divide, paradox is the most appropriate word over here. It's so paradoxical that in the public domain, there is no discussion on caste discrimination because it is not considered as a category of identity at all. It's not, caste does not become a marker of identity. But within the society, caste functions, caste norms and conventions and traditions and practices functions very effectively. And then the worst who are affected are, of course, the Panjamars who continue to suffer. And we come to know of it only through the literary works that are being written by Panjamar writers or Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit writers. And then it's high time that we translate this into English, and then it gains momentum so that some kind of an affirmative action is taken up. But as people who read literature, and then who read literature for appreciation, for enjoyment, and also for some to create some kind of a social awareness, I think there's also a responsibility to like, if we know Tamil, that is also there. I don't know how many of you who are part of this discussion know Tamil. If you happen to know Tamil, please read the short stories or the poems or the novels written by people like Daniel or Jivanandam and some of the writers whom I mentioned. And then I think that is something that we can do as people from literature. I just stop here, and if there is anything that we can discuss, I'm open for discussions. Yeah, thank you. I hope I have finished. Yeah.
Thank you, madam, for opening up an area which I was not familiar with, and it is, and that in Queen Mary's College, all these this information that you've given to us is very valuable for our students. They have some idea of new areas of research, and they can connect, because especially students in Queen Mary's College are very conscious of social issues relating to caste, privilege, and all these things. So I'm sure, though they are silent, they have taken in a lot, and this what you shared now is very close to the hearts of our students.
Yeah. Okay.
You can see the thumbs up and the hearts coming to all these other.
Thank you. I want some discussion, but I don't mind if it's not there also. Probably
you can even ask questions in Tamil if you're more comfortable with speaking in Tamil. I'm sure she will be willing to respond.
I just welcome it. நான் நல்லா தமிழ் பேசுவேன். தமிழ்நாட்டுல இருந்து வந்ததுதான். தமிழ் பொண்ணு தமிழ் பேசாம என்ன? I think that is my first language, and I'm be very comfortable talking in Tamil. In fact, it can be bilingual. And I think this is
Bilingual
also
also.
something that we need to, I think we need to be more, I think we need to open up for this bilingualism, which is also very, very important. I think
Srilata
when I
ma'am is
went
here.
Yes,
abroad, yeah, yeah,
I,
hello.
I just wanted to tell you that you have done, I think you've given a very good introduction to this, because we have never gone into Sri Lanka, except for one or two writers. I haven't gone into this caste system. Didn't know
Yeah,
it existed like that. Right, you mentioned Ayodhyadas.
yeah,
Ayodhyadas, as it's, I mean, Rettamala Srinivasan, who I think there was a marriage connection, or he was a
yeah, it was.
yes,
Yeah,
or
it
something
was.
like that.
Appathurayar,
Yes,
Rettamala Srinivasan,
but
and then
was
Ayodhyadas,
Rettamala
they were all together. Yeah,
Srinivasan, was Rettamala Srinivasan also there are many streets named after him in
yeah,
Guinea.
yeah.
So
Now that awareness is. Yeah.
yeah, was he also a part of this kind of movement before
Yes,
Ambedkar in
yes,
Tamil
yes,
Nadu?
yes. They all started this Dravida Mahajana Sangam as early as, I think, late 19th century.
Justice Party. They
Justice Party came from Periyar. That was in the 1930s. That is Ramasamy Nayakar. He started the Justice Party. That was much later. This is a generation before Periyar. Even before Periyar, so these people have come together as early as, if I remember the date correctly, it was in 1881. They started an organization called Dravida Mahajana Sangam. And right from 1904 to 1914, Ayodhyadas Pandidar and this Appathurayar and then Rettamala Srinivasan, all of them had published one journal called Oru Paisa Tamilan. Okay. And this Oru Paisa Tamilan was later renamed as Tamilan. And those days you can buy this journal with this periodical for 1 paisa, Oru Paisa. Okay. And later it was renamed as Tamilan. And they used this periodical, this journal to circulate their assistance, to bring about an awareness. And in fact, you have a spate of journals. So in the 1930s, I think you also have these 1920s, you have the Adi movements, the Adi Dravida movement. And then you have a lot of Adi Dravida journals which are being published. So this has not come out in the mainstream Indian history at all. When we are talking of Dalit movement, we are always talking of Ambedkar. Of course, yes, he has pioneered a great movement. He has brought about a lot of social changes, no doubt about it. Nobody's denying it. But I think we also need to know what happened in Tamil Nadu, because I'm sure, I don't know whether all of you are from Tamil Nadu, and then something has happened. This kind of a revolutionary consciousness has happened in Tamil Nadu, and then we ought to know. So it was very much there. It
The
was very much
earliest, I think, that's on our syllabus is Mama.
no.
I think we don't
No,
know. In terms
You
of
have to, Ayodhyadas to Periyar. Ayodhyadas to Periyar, that there's a book by K.A.Geetha.
yeah, towards the non-Brahmin millennium.
Towards a non-Brahmin millennium.
I had just read a basic, biography of Rettamala Srinivasan, and that's how I came to know that he studied in London, though he was, they were well off, not, financially they were not on the lower scale. So that's why there were people like that and we forget that. Well, some part of the society was still they were fighting, and they were in some ways, what do you call, privileged. The same society. The rest they are still uninformed. That is
Exactly. That is it. Yeah.
in Tamil Nadu.
It was very
And in Sri Lanka, it's of course another. As you said, the government doesn't recognize that should make a kind of equality, among them.
Yeah.
They should treat everybody. That society must be treating all Tamils on the same scale.
Exactly.
Then why is depression? Why are they feel oppressed? According to your literature.
Within the society, it is not functioning like that. The state does not recognize caste as a marker of identity, so it is not discussed in the public domain. But people live their daily lives within the society, within the community, and then within the community, it is followed. In fact, there is a kind of a divide between the indigenous Tamils and the Sri Lankan Tamils and the Indian Tamils. That is also there. That kind of a divide is also there. Okay, if you go to Colombo and then Nuvarelia, that is where our Indian Tamils live. If you go to Jaffna, they are Sri Lankan Tamils. Though, of course, they came together, during the ethnic strife. But later, that kind of a divide is there. And caste, of course, plays a very, very pivotal role. Yeah.
Just a moment, Professor Bibhuti has a question.
Yes, Professor Bibhuti. Yeah, please.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes, Professor Bibhuti. Biswas.
It seems like a very beautifully you developed your narratives, and your lecture was very enriching. So, but I have a
Thank you.
questions. Actually, how does Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature articulates the interactions or intersections of caste and ethnic marginalizations, particularly in the context of civil war, displacement, and the Tamil struggle for identity there in Sri
Uh,
Lanka?
there are works, of course, especially during the time when ethnic conflict was there, when it was at the peak. I'm talking of the 1980s. There are people who have recalled it. At that time, not much of literature has been written, though. Okay, but then it was either written before or after, because people were busy. They were taking care of their livelihoods. What will they do? Whether they're going to settle down in Sri Lanka, whether they're going to move out. But once they moved out, or whether they continued to stay, the double marginalization that is there, that the Tamil Dalits underwent, both within the community as Dalits and as within Sri Lanka, as Dalits within the Tamil community, and as Tamils within the Sinhala or the Sri Lankan community. There are some short stories, and it comes out in the literary works. Which is written in the Tam. But my focus was to look at works which talk about this kind of a caste discrimination which is there within the Tamil community. So I was looking out for such works, such literature, and my focus has been that. But definitely it is there. Right now, I'm not able to recall the exact names. I'm not able to give you, but it is there. It is very much there. Yeah. And I think a lot of blog posts are also there from the diaspora, the Sri Lankan Tamils who are settled abroad in Europe and in Canada. I think over there, if you look out, they're mostly write in Tamil. So if you can understand, because all this should also be translated into English, which need not necessarily be. But if you want this to be highlighted in the public, amongst the people across the world, then I think English becomes translations play a very, very pivotal role in circulating this knowledge. Yeah, it is there, but right now I'm not able to recall who exactly are they. I'm not able to give you the names, because my work was also focusing only on Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature, where they are highlighting where the caste oppression is being highlighted. Yeah.
Mine is connected to what Professor Bibhuti has raised now. It's probably the same thing in another way. So does Tamil nationalism surmount the caste fissures, during the conflict, the peak of the conflict, and joining the cadres and all that? How did that solidarity work?
At that point of time, when they had to come together, and then when they have to have this collective identity as Tamils, this caste was something that was pushed under the carpet. At that point of time, I'm talking of the 70s and 80s, when it was in the peak, when they had to mobilize. I'm talking of LTT and then ERP. There are many organizations. Now, most importantly, the LTTE that we are all familiar with. So the LTTE, when they were recruiting their cadres, they did not look into any kind of caste divisions at all. Okay, but that is why when this second story which I discussed, she did not probably face this kind of a discrimination when she was part of the LTT. The Sudamani is coming back of everything is over, and then now there is peace is prevalent now, and she feels that she is no longer, it's not active at all. Prabhakaran is supposed to be murdered, and then the LTT is now seems to be dissipated, and then she comes back to her village because she has to continue with the living. That is why it's not there when she was probably. It is hinted here and there in that story, discreetly. That at that point of time she was strong, and then she was able to resist, and then she was able to question, she was able to protest, because she was also part of the LTT cadre, which means that such things were not followed. Caste was in fact pushed under the carpet. We can use that word, that expression to describe this. But it does not mean that it wasn't there at all. It was there. It revives when when this ethnic conflict is there no more, and then some kind of a peace solution is arrived, okay, and people have gone back to their daily routine. Now it surfaces, it resurfaces now. That is what the second story tells us. That after decades, when she is coming back to her village, her friend, she goes to her friend's house. Friend is no more, friend has passed away, and a friend's daughter is there whom she has seen as a small baby. She is grown up now, she's married, and then this kind of a what to say, this ingraining of the caste values, caste norms or caste privileges is very much there in that daughter. That is why she's not willing to give her water in hand. She has to pour it, and then she's seeing to it that she stays outside the doorstep. She's not letting her inside the house. This is happening in the 1990s, okay, and I mean, that is what I can tell you. So it was not followed at that point of time when a collective mobilization was required. But it was very much there. It was conveniently forgotten at that point of time.
Thank you.
That is why the state also did not take up. The state also did not, the Sri Lankan state did not also take up caste as a marker of identity in the official records only because of this. Because the LTT did not foreground that. The fight was not for that. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you, Professor Biswas and then Professor Srinivasan, and also Professor Srilata for the discussion on the queries here. Anyone else?
No, ma'am.
If you're comfortable with Tamil, I'm comfortable in speaking in Tamil. I don't mind. In fact, I was just telling that we should open up for bilingualism. Yeah. Yes. I think somebody was talking. Benita? Is it a student or a professor? No. Yeah. So if there's anything you can ask me, and then in Tamil also I'm quite
can
comfortable.
you prescribe some Tamil Dalit Sri Lankan writers?
Daniel is one among them. You have a complete collection of Daniel. I can tell more. There's a collection of short stories. Let me just look at my references, and I can tell you. There is this there is K. Daniel Padaipugal Togudi Ondru. It was published in 2005. Okay, and then there is another a collection of short stories published in the name of, the title of the short stories, the collection of short stories is Teendattahadavan Matrum Eedathu Dalit Sirukadaigal. This is edited by Sugan, a person called Sugan, Sugan. It's in Tamil, and this was also published. This is published in 2007. Okay, so the novels which I discussed one was from Daniel. Okay, and that was from K. Daniel Padaipugal Togudi Ondru, which is a bulky volume which was available, and I bought that, which contains all the novels of Daniel has written a lot of novels, very, very interesting novels, and then Tanir is one, and then Panchakonangal is one, where he is just discussing the kind of different perspectives that are there, for the ethnic conflict that is brewing up. There are people who just are not bothered about it, Tamils who are not bothered, young Tamils want to join that, and there are also Tamils who are very wary about the whole thing, where it is going to take them. So Panchakonangal is also a very, very interesting novel. Tanir is again talking of the water bodies which are located only in the mainstream, and then people will have to walk all the way, and how that is denied. The Panjamars are coming together to construct a well of their own, and then the dominant caste, the Seva Vellalas, are not able to tolerate this, and then that is also destroyed. So he's written a lot of novels. So you can probably look at these two. These two are the main books that I have consulted. Okay. So you can start off. So in this, Daniel is a novelist, but there's some of the writers, that is short story writers, I can just tell you. You can just take note of it. Yeah. So you have Dominic Jiva. Dominic Jiva also writes. Okay. K. Daniel, Dominic Jiva, Tennian, then S.K. Raghunathan. They all write. Okay. So yeah, please. So the novel that I discussed was Karnal, where the Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit Christian community. It is about that, how casteism is very much prevalent within Christianity. That is what it highlights. And then what happens in the post Elam Wars, Devadasan's short story, Kanni. The name of the story is Kanni, and then this talks of Chudamani, who was in the past. She was in the as part of the LTT cadre, and then she comes back, and how caste discrimination is still continuing. And then the third one, which I discussed, which of what was happening in the diaspora, is Deva. The writer's name is Deva, and the title of the short story is Oosi Irukkum Idankuda. Okay, so that is these are the three works that I discussed. I've also written two articles, so if you're interested, you can read. Yeah.
Thank
Is there
you.
anything else that you want to ask?
Thank you
Yeah.
so much, ma'am.
Thanks
I
a
think
lot for this wonderful opportunity. I happen to interact at least online, virtual. This virtual interaction is something that is very, very heartening for me. And then I wish I can meet you in person also. There's some time when I come to Chennai because that is my hometown. And then Queen Mary's, as I told you, is something because I studied in Rosary Matriculation. I don't
down
know
the
whether
road.
if you are familiar
Yeah.
with the locality, it is in
Yes,
Santone.
yes.
So I'm from there. So this is one locality that I'm very, very familiar with right from my childhood. And then I have very cherished memories of that. But I mean that bus stop near AIR, and then taking 27D from there to go to my house. All these things are very fresh in my memory. So I would love to come in person also, and then meet the students and the department, and most importantly the research club in tandem, which is taking this initiative to have this kind of a discussion, which is very much required, because I feel that literature is slowly. I mean, I don't know. You just tell me whether I'm pessimistic or not. Slowly, it is just reaching a kind of a crisis now when people have started looking at it as very, very non-utilitarian, and people do not want to take literature, and then don't want to read. All these things are there, and then in the midst of all this, I think it's our responsibility to revive this in I mean through such research clubs, and then in tandem is doing perfectly well that way. And I really appreciate all your efforts and looking forward to more such interactions and discussions. Thanks a lot, all of you. Professor
Thank you,
Prabhupada,
ma'am.
Professor Srilata, then Jeevita, who had this wonderful introduction about me, and then many others, the members, and then Professor Biswas for his questions, and many others who are part of this club. I just see that there are around, excluding me, I think there are 39 who are there. 40 people are there. Thanks a lot to all of you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And
Yeah.
also thanks for shifting this to I mean, initially. So I would like to thank the next speaker also to giving me this
Yeah.
opportunity
Professor
to.
Shreya, next speaker, she's a board member. So
Okay,
Srilata is
Professor
also a
Shreya.
board member.
Yeah. Professor Shreya, my heartfelt gratitude for allowing me to go first and then finish this. Okay, yeah. Thanks a lot. Dean of Languages, is it?
Yeah, you're welcome, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you, thank you. Thanks a lot, ma'am. I have another engagement. Otherwise, I would have gone with what I mean with being the second. Thank you, thank you. Thanks a lot. Yeah, thank you all. Have a good
Thank you, ma'am. The presentation provided a comprehensive analysis of Sri Lankan Tamil Dalit literature, highlighting the complexities of marginalization, identity, the socio-political landscape. The presentation sparked a thought-provoking discussion on the presentation of Dalit voices in literature from island regions like Sri Lanka. Now, let me introduce our keynote speaker for the session, Dr. Shreya Bhattacharji, Professor of Central University of Jharkhand. Her academic interests include post-colonial studies, partition studies, and contemporary literary theories. Formerly a civil services officer, also nurtures a keen interest in human rights, tribal and gender issues. Shreya ma'am is here to speak on the topic celebrating green ethics, Sarhul and the tribal cosmos of Jharkhand. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening. Am I audible to everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sure.
So I would like to make the PowerPoint presentation. I'll just take a minute. Is my slide visible to everyone? Yes, Shreya.
Right. So, uh, first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Maria Priti Srinivasan and in tandem for this opportunity. And I have been associated with to my heart. So, the title of my presentation is Celebrating Green Ethics, Sarhul and the Tribal Cosmos of Jharkhand. In a minute, I will let you know what is Sarhul. On your right, you can see the shal trees of Jharkhand in full bloom. At the outset, I would also like to mention uh, that this is a work in progress, and with me in my team is Gunjan Kumar Jha, my senior research fellow, and my student Hare Krishna Query. Most of the photographs and paintings that you would see in this presentation are by Hare Krishna Query. So today we are going to talk about Sarhul. Now, as you see in this introductory slide, Sarhul is a very big festival of the Adivasis of the Chotnagpur Plateau, which obviously includes Jharkhand, but also the adjoining regions of Bihar, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, and West Bengal. And this festival is celebrated by many communities, the Oraon, Munda, Ho, Santhal, Birchia, and the Korwa tribal communities of this area. This festival is celebrated on Chaitra Shukla Tritiya, that is the third day after the new moon in the month of Chaitra, which is the 12th or last month in the Bengali solar calendar and the first month of the solar Saka or the Indian national calendar. Now, the word Sarhul, if we look at the etymology, it comes from the word sarai, which actually is the flower of the shal tree. And hul means collectively or grove. So basically, this festival is about welcoming nature in her new form by honoring the sal flowers. The symbolism associated with it is that when the shal flowers bloom, it is a renewal of the sacred bond between human and nature. This festival is also known by other names uh, like Baha or Ba, which means flower in Mundari, Santhali, and Ho languages. Jankor, where Jang means seed and Jankor is the flower in Khadiya or Kuduk. And Khaddi, Khaddi is a flower in Oraon or Kuduk. Now, Ad- Adivasi communities and nature, they share an osmotic relationship. Life for one is life for the other, and vice versa. And Sarhul is a cornerstone for various Adivasi communities of the Chotnagpur Plateau. And the traditions associated with Sarhul all highlight a very deep and respectful nature towards a very respectful relationship towards nature, and it has been you know disseminated from generation to generation. On the screen you can see some classic photographs all associated with the Sarhul festival. Now, when we were researching and working on the field, it came to us that Sarhul can perhaps be read as an eco-visionary event. The rituals and stories, the kathas associated with Sarhul are they all show the spirit of reverence for nature that is a part of Adivasi life, and all these rituals and kathas are attached to the pulse of Mother Earth. So, in a way, Sarhul embodies a unique eco vision, and it is tied with environmental ethics and Adivasi spirituality. And I will go on to explicate how these ancient traditions can offer contemporary lessons in sustainability. So the three key points that we can look at when we think of Sarhul is number one, reverence towards Mother Earth, and ecological consciousness, the ability to understand the balance of nature, and to understand that life is not linear but cyclical, and one has to recognize the continuous flow and regeneration of nature, and which applies to human life also. Now, Sarhul is a 4-day long festival, as you can see on the slide. Day one is devoted to the fish and the crab. Day two is for fasting and ritual offerings. Day three is for celebration, primarily eating, drinking, singing, dancing. And day four has this unique uh, ritual of pulkosi, that is the sunflower distribution ceremony. As I mentioned in the introductory slide, that this festival is associated with the blooming of shal, which emphasizes renewal. And this is the focal point of this festival. It symbolizes Earth's fertility and renewal, and it marks the beginning of the new agricultural season. It is the blooms are revered because they symbolize Earth's nature's reawakening. Now, 2 days before this festival, the Pahan or the priest goes to the forests and he collects the sal flowers, the sprigs of sal flower, and keeps them in a bamboo winnowing fan, the soup. They signify fertility, agricultural abundance, and they also reinforce the human nature spiritual link. Here you can see a close up of the sal flowers, which are golden in color and very tiny. Now, as I mentioned, day one is dedicated to the fish and the crab. According to the creation story of the Munda community, the Shrishti Katha, once upon a time, as you can see on the slide, the world was full of water, and Singbonga, the supreme deity, and Adima, the first mother, they felt lonely. So they thought about creating earth. Now, bringing the mud from the bottom of the ocean was a huge challenge. So the two divine duo, they approached the fish, but she failed. Then they approached the tortoise, the crab, they too failed. The last they approached was the earthworm, and then he proposed that all of them should work on it together. So this their collective effort, this uh, which as we all know is the hallmark of Adivasi communities. This collective effort made the task easy to accomplish. And thereafter, Adima leveled the earth, and so the story goes on, and the hills, rivers, fields, forests were created. And the dream of Singbonga and Adima came true. Therefore, the fish and the crab are considered to be worthy elders of humans. This is a painting by my student Hare Krishna Query, and here you can see uh, earth being created, the hills, forests, rivers. Now, according to the Orang creation myths, Goddess Parvati, in a bid to save the human species from Lord Mahadev's pralaya, hid a brother and sister human duo in the hole of a crab beside a river in a place called Sirasita. You can see it on the slide. And this place is still there, very much there in the Gumla district of Jharkhand. Now, as the crab had given shelter to the human ancestors, the Orang community also holds the crab in great esteem as the preserver of human life. So, on day one of Sarhul, fishes and crabs are caught with much respect by the community members, both men and women. And soup is prepared in the evening, and that is, it is with this soup that the worshippers break their ritual fast. And this sacrificial soup is prepared as a mark of reverence to the fish and the crab, and it is believed that drinking this soup makes the worshipper worthy of receiving the energy and fertility of the fish and the crab. Now, this I think is one of the iconic pictures of our study, and here you can see a fish hanging at the main entrance of the house. Now, on this day, uh, sacred rituals are conducted at the Sarna or Jahir. Now, that is a sacred grove, a part of the jungle that the community leaves untouched. They believe that the jungle spirits reside there. And in the Sarna, there is a Sarna Sthal, that is the actual place of worship, which is usually next to a big shal tree or a big rock. Now, at this point, the priest or Pahan places two earthen pots full of water. In the Brambe area, our university was at that point of time located in that village, and so most of the research was conducted there. And the priest places there two earthen pots full of hadia or rice beer. The two earthen pots symbolize the heaven and the earth. And the Pahan measures the depth of the water in the pots with a sal twig. The necks of the two pots are connected with a new thread, and so heaven and earth are symbolically united with a thread of love. In fact, Sarhul, in a way, also symbolizes the marriage of heaven and earth in love. Thereafter, the Pahan and his assistants return to the village to be welcomed with music and dance. Water is sprinkled on them with mango leaves, their feet are washed, and then hadia is offered to them. And in the evening, the youngsters and children, they go to the akhra, which is the place for all community rituals, and dancing and music continue late into the night. Day 2, as I mentioned, is for fasting and ritual offerings. The Pahan and his assistants, they clean, sharpen their weapons, all kinds of weapons, knives, bows, and arrows. At noon, they go for bathing and then gather at the priest's home. Then they go together to the Sarna Sthal, and they carry the winnowing fan, uh, arwa chawal, urad dal, incense sticks, vermilion, thread, chicken, all the ritual material for the sacrifice. It is very interesting to note that in the Brambe Murma area, it is only in the last decade that women have begun to take active part in the holy rituals of Sarhul. And they go to the Sarnasthal for prayer in the first half of the second day. The village women with water pots on their heads follow the priest to the sacred grove. The procession is accompanied with dance and music. Here you can see the procession going to the Sarnasthal in Brambe. You can see the women, you can see the musical instruments, you can even see the little child perched on the mandar. The weapons and musical instruments such as mandars, nagadas are placed at the Sarnasthal, and then with a sprig of sal flower, the Pahan examines the level of water in the earthen pots. And thereby he announces his assessment of rains for the coming year. If the water level remains the same, heavy monsoons and abundant harvest are predicted. If the water level dips, a drought is predicted. The Pahan then ties a new thread, which is a symbol of new earth, around the rock or the tree, the Sarnasthal, and he offers incense sticks and draws three vermilion marks for Singbonga, Adima, and the water spirits. Then he draws five vermilion marks for the five previous generations of the community. And then he addresses Singbonga, Adima, the hill spirits, water spirits, village spirits, house spirits, and ancestors. On your right, you can see the Pahan tying the new thread around the shal tree. Here you can just listen to a bit of the prayer. It is very interesting that in the Sarhul prayer, and I have taken a bit of it for our study here, Sarhul invites everyone, As you can see, it begins by saying, O great spirit of heaven, high heavens, Mother Earth down below, you rise like milk, you set like curd. Four corners, 10 directions, east, west, north, south, the earth extending far, the sky bending low, spread like a mat, covered like a bowl. So it symbolizes, as I mentioned earlier, the wedding of earth and heaven. And the ritual prayer begins by invoking this pair. And the images, as you can see, are grassroots and related to the everyday life of the community. Very interestingly, everyone is invited to the Sarhul festivities. The gods, goddesses, spirits, ancestors, you know, everyone. And the prayer continues, you who have come here, you who have arrived here, we sitting with you, we seated with you, to you gods, to you goddesses, we offer a prayer. We make a request, our cultivation and crops, our animals and wealth, may they grow day by day, may they multiply always. And everyone is present there, and they are invoked for wealth and agricultural abundance. The Pahan then sacrifices the chickens and offers hadia. Usually there are 4 chickens, and they are specified, white for Singbonga, red for hill spirits, black for water spirits, and dappled or chitkabra for Sarnama and the ancestors. After these, the women leave the Sarnasthal. Thereafter, the Pahan and his assistants, the elders, and the male members of the community make the Akshatdan or the rice offering. Thereafter, Tehri is prepared with the ritual offerings of chicken and rice. On your right, you can see the Pahan praying and offering Singbonga, the ritual white chicken. The community members then greet each other with Johar and sprigs of salflower. These sprigs are usually tucked behind the right ear, and therefore this ceremony is called Phul Khosi. Phul is flower and Khosi is to tuck. When the moon of Chaitra Shukla Tritiya becomes visible in the sky, the Pahan is offered and he is the first to eat the tehri and drink the hadiya, and there lights a diya or earthen lamp beside the tree, followed by back to his home. The sacrificial meal is distributed in the village. And in the evening, people sing and dance in the akhra. On your right, you can see the Phul Khosi happening, and below you can see the prepared tehri. And in this pic, you can see the Pahan has lit a diya or earthen lamp beside the shal tree. Now, day 3 is dedicated to celebration, and there is a lot of eating and drinking with kith and kin, other guests. And then the community bids the shal flower a ceremonial farewell in a Shobha Yatra or procession. In the Brambe Murma area, the Shobha Yatra ends at the Shakti Khuta about which I will speak in a minute. And you can see this is an aerial view of the Sarhul procession taken by Hare. Now, the Jatra Khuta, or also known as the Dharam Khuta or Shakti Khuta, is the stem of a shal tree, and it is worshipped as Dharmesh by the Oraons and the as Singbonga by the Munda community. On your right, you can see the shal stem. Uh, we will talk about it some other day because there are so many stories, so many narratives associated with the Jatra Khuta, and the which will be an episode in itself. On the fourth day, that is the day of Phulkhosi, the Pahan goes to every house in the village and gifts a sprig of shal flower and some holy water. The villagers tuck the sprigs of shal flower on their main doors and sprinkle the holy water around their houses, believing that this would keep them safe from evil. And on the fourth night too, at the Akhra, there is song and dance in the night. And this again is an iconic pic, as you can see, the main door and a sprig of shal stuck there. Now, I thought that I would just briefly touch upon the story of Bindi, which is the one of the most popular stories associated with Sarhul, wherein Bindi is the daughter of Mother Earth. One day she goes to bathe in a pond and she doesn't come back. Mother Earth, she searches for her everywhere, but she cannot be found. And so she begins to weep. And in her sorrow, the entire, nature, it dries up, things decay, and there is death and destruction all around. Till it is found that Bindi is in the underworld with the king of death. Then a deal is struck between Mother Earth and the god of death, because the god of death also realizes that Earth itself will, annihilate if Bindi is not allowed to return. So there is a pact between Mother Earth and the god of death that Bindi will spend 6 months on Earth and 6 months in the underworld. Sarhul marks the day of her return to Earth. And to welcome her, Mother Earth is decked in joyous green. It is the beginning of spring. And the picture that you see is again, it is a painting by Hare. Now, while we were studying and researching, we found that this story of uh, Bindi, it has an uncanny resemblance with the story of Persephone. Many of you would be familiar with this story, wherein Persephone, the daughter of Demeter, who, as we all know, was the goddess of fertility and harvest, uh, she is one day she goes missing, and Demeter searches for her everywhere but cannot find her, and later it is found that she is in the underworld with the god of underworld, that is Hades, who fell in love with her and took her to the underworld. And Persephone is also very sad, although she grows to love Hades. And Demeter, in her anger, her anguish and pain, she begins to weep, and just like in the Bindi story, entire earth, it becomes barren. Then Persephone's father and Demeter's husband, the Olympian king Zeus, he requests Hades to send Persephone back to Earth, but then that cannot happen. So again, the story goes on that Hades gives Persephone a pomegranate to eat, and she eats 6 seeds of the pomegranate, and because she eats those 6 seeds, the fates come and tell that she cannot go. But then Zeus and Demeter want her back. So then again there is a pact that because she has eaten 6 seeds of pomegranate, 6 months she would be in on Earth. those would be the summer months, and 6 months she would be in the underworld, those would be the winter months. And just like Sarhul, in ancient Greek, there was a festival which was called Anthesphoria, where anthos means flower and phoria is to bear or to carry. And this festival was a welcome festival, a spring festival marked to celebrate Persephone's coming back to earth. Now, after having gone through the rituals and the stories or kathas of Sarhul, what can we conclude? One is we can see the rituals and their close association with ecological reverence. These are not just cultural practices, these are powerful acts of ecological reverence. And they uphold traditional knowledge systems which ensure uh, a focus on ecological sustainability. I would like to read Sarhul as a mirror for green ethics because this festival emphasizes several things. It talks about a collective well being and respectful resource management, and it talks about reverence for nature, it talks about environmental sustainability, it talks about cultural preservation, it talks about communal solidarity, and also of ecological ethics. What can we learn? I mean, what are the lessons for contemporary sustainability? This festival advocates a holistic approach that integrates human well-being with ecological health. You know, and it talks about community-led conservation. It empowers local stewardship, and it talks about ethical consumption. It promotes mindful resource use. And we all remember what Mahatma Gandhi had said, that there is enough for everyone's need but not enough for everyone's greed. And what can be the key takeaways and future directions that we can learn from this festival? This festival is a powerful testament to Adivasi resilience and ecological wisdom, and it reveals pathways for a more sustainable and just future. As we can understand that Adivasi wisdom is a rich source of ecological insights. It talks about cultural preservation, which is vital for environmental advocacy, and it shows the way to sustainability by creating an informed discourse. And further research can maybe explore the values of Sarhul and how it can be integrated into contemporary environmental education and policy making. Uh, the references that you can see here, most of them are interviews that were conducted, and also Ramdayal Mundaji's Adi Dharm, and this film, uh, Mundari Shrishti Katha. Some of you might be interested. These are our publications on Sarhul. The first was published in this very handsome volume, Language, Literature, Culture and Cinema, uh, where we had talked about the festival narratives of Sarhul, the umbilical nature human connect, reading the Sarhul festival narratives. And this publication, it talked about the many dimensions of Sarhul. We discussed the different rituals and also the stories associated with Sarhul. And I could not resist including this. These are some of the pics that we took during Sarhul over the years, and some of my friends were visiting from abroad, and you can see most of my students here. So thank you so much for your patience. Johar, thank you.
Thank you. We usually take the questions at the end, but I think we can respond to Professor Shreya right away. Any questions, observations, uh, clarifications, something more that you want to learn, you can ask her.
Can we ask the
Let's do
question
that.
now?
Yes, we do. Yes, yes, yes. Because
I just want a very things very close to my reading and research also. I've read
Mhm.
about this, but then I mean all the sing bomb, all those what that the creation stories, and almost all those. I was interested in noting this that the most of the creation stories of the tribals here, and I think in all places, they seem to have some kind of
Yes.
connection. They have a kind of connection. Another thing I would ask you is this: the sal tree, which is sacred to the men, is revered, and this one particular, one particular festival when it is in bloom, that it is in. Similarly, we all of us here, okay, we must be having our. I'm talking about the mainstream, okay. Here for our New Year in Kerala, we have that cassia fistula tree, right? That the flowers of the tree, yellow in color, that is supposed to be the first thing you set your eyes on in the morning on the day of the New Year. Okay, we are almost it is revered throughout. Like that, I have noticed that in Coimbatore they have some grass kind of. I don't know the name of that grass, but they have a bunch of it tied to their trees. I mean, to their doors. Then we use mango leaves as auspicious things to line our door, okay, in the thing. So all these are also, I mean, acts. How you said that that's an ecological acts of ecological reverence. Here, is there any difference between the way we use all these things as, I mean, for worship, for religious purposes? Is there any way difference in the way the tribal communities use those flowers and leaves and others? And especially see in Kerala for the last month, I'm just noticing that the 10 flowers we call the Dasha Pushpa, okay, we call the 10 plants are identified. One or the other is incorporated into the food during that particular month. Okay, the month, that particular month, one or the other of these 10 is incorporated into the food of that particular month. Also, I noticed that in another place, I noticed that when the local deity, mother, okay, is being, that day they give pepper as Naivedyam, all in the locality, everyone in the locality, in that area, in and around the temple, they avoid pepper in the food. So was I thinking right when that was a kind of ecological conservation method, right? What do you think of this kind of acts of by the mainstream communities silently practice in certain areas? Maybe it is the total urban people who have in the cities who have forgotten. These are the cultural roots, aren't they also aiming at the same kind of.
Actually, this brings me to what I have been thinking of late. That what we see today as as Adivasi wisdom or as an alternative way of life, perhaps at one point of time that was mainstream. And that is why in we all of us, all the communities have those roots, but the only thing is that we have now drifted from it, number one, and it has become more individualistic. Like when you go to these Adivasi communities, you find that all these festivities are communal events. It is not happening only in the sanctity of your house. It doesn't happen like that. It is the whole community will wait for the Pahan to announce the date of Sarhul, And the Pahan is the first person who would bring the sal flower home. Only then anyone else can go and touch the tree. It goes like that. Everything is a collective effort. It doesn't happen on a one-to-one basis. It doesn't happen like that. And that, I think, is very important, where you know uh, ecological stewardship is concerned, where conservation of nature is concerned, where conservation of this kind of trees, flowers, all these things are associated. That is where they become very important. It is not one person thinking about it. The whole community is thinking like that. And that is what, when I was talking about the Sarna Sthal, or when I was talking about the Sarna, that is an entire part. Even today, in you go to any part of Jharkhand, you will find part of the jungle untouched. Why? Because that is the sacred grove, and that is where these kind of festivities occur. It has not been, the trees have not been felled for other issues. That is not what has happened. And that is because of the ecological stewardship of these communities, that these have been preserved, and the kind of reverence that they show for these trees.
Okay, I have a question. What is the livelihood of these communities? Their livelihood.
Livelihood, it is uh, mostly agriculture. And as I told you, that most of the field work was conducted in Brambe, Murma. These are villages which are, our university, the first campus was located right there. So the main source of livelihood would be agriculture, and especially paddy and vegetables, because this is the vegetable basket of India.
Mm.
So most of the good vegetables that you get anywhere in India comes from these parts of Jharkhand. But of course, they are into other professions also. But for the villages, that is the main thing.
Because I mean, I'm remote from this location that you're speaking of. Here we have these temple festivals, in our part, and people go back to their villages and so they go. I was just wondering whether it's a cultural practice. There could be urban people who go back to their villages and participate in community
Yes,
worship and practicing. So that way it becomes, maybe just cosmetic or an annual practice. It is not a part of green ethics, as you would put it. So is green ethics actually being practiced?
yes, in this case, yes, because this is because I'm talking about the villages. I'm not talking about city culture where people would come. Of course, there is a city version of it where you see huge processions in Ranchi city, but that is not what I'm talking about. It is celebrated in every
Okay.
village by the villagers who are located there. You know, it is not something cosmetic. It is not something, you know, uh, which is city based, so to speak.
Thank you.
It's true. All our festivals are urban, and therefore it is. If it's
Yeah.
good for consumption, it's consumption and the market. Not,
Yes,
yes, it's too materialistic. The
and
others,
that,
like I said, that
yes,
the reverence part alone, right? Reverence of
yes.
Mother Earth, yes, comes
That
from.
is why I showed that tiny clip, of them actually praying to the shal tree. This is not a big occasion, not a big pandal, not a big festival happening somewhere in the city. It is happening right in the shal grove. No mics, no nothing, just people praying.
Yeah, that was beautiful, that clip.
Yeah.
In Kerala,
Thank
they're
you.
breaking down all those groves, sacred, so-called sacred groves, which they
Hmm.
once had to say. Saving the land from agriculture. We had groves. Those groves are
Hmm.
now, they just go and ask some priest to come and do some thing, and then they break it down. It is so sad to see that, that bit of ecological, what do you call that space is removed. The trees, the familiar trees and the things that grew there are all gone. That's what
Right.
urbanization is doing to what we once had, and we say we are going green, right?
Yeah,
That's
exactly. Yes, yes, and that is what I, as I told ma'am, that is what I believe, that what is now being shown as an alternative must have been mainstream at one point of time, and it needs to become mainstream if all of us want to, survive and kind of leave a planet which is livable for the future generations. So our focus needs to change, and we need to learn from these communities,
yeah. I have
actually learn.
read in Mahashweta Devi, the land is sick, therefore man should treat it and make it well. So man
Absolutely.
is, I mean, dependent on the land, and the land is dependent on man. But
Yes,
that concept was new to me when I read about the. I think it was a
yes,
Buddha's,
yes,
Choti
yes,
Buddha.
yes, yes,
Madam, good evening. Can I make an observation here?
yes, please.
Uh, yes,
That's Urmila.
I
Urmila.
was very much, yeah, I'm Urmila from Queen Mary's College,
Yes,
Department of English.
yes,
I was quite impressed by the way, you spoke about green ethics, and in almost every mythology we have this. And I was
yes.
very happy when you drew kind of a parallel with Persephone and all that. So
Mhm.
that's one thing I wanted to tell you. And one more observation is that in every Hindu festival or anything that we do, even simple pujas or whatever that we do, it is all indirectly a kind of a practice of green ethics, I feel. So worshipping sun god, and then we have Shankranti, everything, like everything is part of nature only.
Of
So
course, of
anything
course.
that we offer, all the rituals, they
Mhm.
involve so much of nature. It's by way of tribute to all that is given to us. So I think it's green ethics. Am I right?
Yes, of course, and
The
that is
small
how it
little
must
things
be
that we offer,
done.
no, everything that betel nut or betel leaves or whatever that we do, milk or
Yes,
anything, sugar cane, everything is a kind of acknowledgement that all this has come from nature, and it's our responsibility to preserve all that.
exactly so, and that is what we need to do, and that is what we are
Yeah.
not doing. See,
Yeah,
therein
we are
lies
not
the
doing.
problem.
We should
That
realize that. Otherwise, no, some
yes,
people question, I have that anxiety. They ask, see, whatever is given to us, why should you offer the same thing to God? That is not the idea. The idea is to realize that everything is given to us by nature, and it is
yes,
our responsibility to preserve them, conserve them. That is
yes.
my understanding of all this. Am I
And that
right?
is why you are right,
Yeah.
ma'am, and you must have seen that that is why of in our festivals, in Hindu festivals also, that the first offerings, the first harvest, and all these are related to the agricultural cycles, the first
Yes.
harvest is
Yes.
always offered to the
Yeah.
deities, and thereafter you
Yeah.
are supposed to partake of it,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes.
And that is
Maybe
what.
in the Adivasi practice and all, they realize that and consciously they do it. And
Yes,
here in urban culture, without understanding the implications, we do that.
yes, because it has rusted, there is so
Yeah,
much dust that has gathered on these
yes.
practices, so it has become just a formality,
And they mean
the
it's all superstitious and all that. We don't understand the
yes,
implication of that, and
yes,
we interpret it differently.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
So,
but among the Adivasi communities, till now at least, there is
yeah. Yes.
that
Yes.
reverence is still there, that
Reverence is there.
reverence is
That's
still
right,
there.
madam. That's right.
Yes,
That's right.
yes,
If at
yes,
all we can do that, in our small little ways, I think nature will be preserved, and yeah, that could be done.
yes. Otherwise what is happening in Himachal and Uttarakhand and Jammu is there for everybody to see. If
Yeah,
you do
yeah.
not revere
Of late.
nature,
Yes,
what
yes.
happens if you give in
Yeah.
to
Mm,
greed
yes.
and and material accumulation,
Yes.
then this is the outcome of it,
Yes. Surely,
so
madam.
that,
Surely. We will
yes,
work towards that, madam. I've got a lot of environmental consciousness, and I want to take up these issues actually in practice, and so that next generation at least will be better educated regarding this. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you,
ma'am.
madam. Thank you for taking it up.
Thank you so much.
Can we go to our next speaker? Uh, Thank you, Professor Shreya. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for having me here.
It was actually a very soothing presentation. Thank you. The ideas and very, very, very nice.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bhushan sir, you can invite Bhushan sir. Jeevita. Jeevita.
Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, yes, yeah.
Sorry, ma'am. Now let us move to the second part of the session titled Island Region. Next we have Dr. Bibhuti Bhushan Biswas, Assistant Professor in the Department of International Relations, Central University of Jharkhand, Ranchi. He has 15 years of teaching and research experience. Dr. Biswas has published 5 books, 33 research papers, and 28 book chapters. His areas of specialization are Southern Asia, with a focus on Bangladesh foreign policy and island studies. Sir Biswas is now here to speak on the topic linguistic diversity and cultural practices, a study of indigenous and migrant communities in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands.
Thank you very much. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Actually, yeah, my internet is actually fluctuating. So, anyways, if I'm not audible, please let me know. So, thank you very much to everyone, and particularly Queen's Mary's College and that in Tandem Research Club for inviting me for this beautiful session. And since the beginning, the session is going very well, and I really enjoy other speakers in the session. And I particularly would like to thank the principal of the college and Professor Shreya Bhattacharji, madam. So whenever there is any program, she is actually believing in me that I could deliver something uh, for the audience. So thank you, madam, for always keeping in mind about me. So and today I'm going to speak about linguistic diversity and cultural practices, a study of indigenous and migrants community in the Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So is basically I'm going to uh, talk about the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which is actually a living laboratory of a diversity, and how that is a living diversity, laboratory of diversity. And the second is indigenous tribes plus migrants communities, how they are coexisting with each other. And this is study by study actually focused on basically intersections of language and culture. So that basically I'm going to make a presentation on it. And then and this research objectives of this my today's talk is this explaining linguistic plurality in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So with the different people, indigenous people, as well as from the penal settlements and the migrants and the settlers of Andaman Nicobar Islands. And they study culture, their cultural practices like rituals, festivals, food, and folklores. As Shreya Madam also has given a very beautiful presentations on basically on Jharkhand, a festival called Sarhul. which is I am also experiencing here. I am also from the Central University of Jharkhand, and my department is international relations. And there is again the objectives of this presentation is to understand the challenges to indigenous traditions there in Andaman, because they are very few, and there are so many challenges they are facing in terms of modernizations. And they're going to discuss about the policy needs for preservations and coexistence of tribal groups or indigenous. I will prefer to call indigenous rather than tribals. It's actually give a kind of sense of Ethiopian kind of things. So better I will take the terminology of indigenous people as like Adivasi, not the tribal. So, and populations overview indigenous people versus migrants, and how they are geographically and demographically their context, that I'm going to, and highlight the plurality among these two different people. There are those who are actually migrants and the indigenous people in Andaman Nicobar Islands. Before going into detail, I would like to like to say that the populations of this tribal people in Andaman Nicobar, basically Nicobaris is one of those one of the biggest tribal indigenous people there in Andaman and Nicobar. They have, as per the 2011 census, these people are having around 27,168 people are there. So now by this time around 30,000 people are there. And then Shompens are actually is basically very tiny populations of 229 as per 2011 census. But now there are some maybe 10, 15 people or 20 people, maybe plus and minus. And the Jarwa, another tribal group that also having around 380 to 400 people. They live in the west coast of South and Middle Andaman. Uh, and then Ongi is they are living in Little Andaman, which is just near to the 10-degree channel. And after this Little Andaman, the Nicobar group of islands that starts. So they are having 101 number in number. They are basically they're confined to the Little Andaman, that also place called Dugang Creek, that is a South Bay, and the South Bay of Little Andaman, and their tiny population is 100 like that only. And the Great Andamanese also, it is around 52, and Sentinelese is around 15. That is official in 2021 actually counted, but since Sentinelese are very, and Shompen is very ferocious, so it's very difficult to identify their hideouts and all these things. But this is the conditions of these people, those who are actually living in Andaman Nicobar Islands for thousands of years. And we wonder actually, and basically I am from the Andaman Nicobar Islands, that's why I'm a primary source, that I can say. And we have day to day we used to interact with these people, encounter with these people, because they are in the forest. And only Nicobaris are in the mainstream economy, or in the mainstream, and rest all others. And Ongi is now gradually they are coming out of jungle, but since their population